Put down the suitcase for a second. If you're planning to fly this week, your boarding pass isn't the most important document you own. The most important document is the Congressional Budget Calendar. It is Saturday, February 14th, 2026. While most people are focused on Valentine's Day, the Department of Homeland Security has entered a partial shutdown after Congress failed to pass DHS funding. But do not let the word shutdown fool you. This is not the old, messy, everything closes version. This one is selective. It is designed to create maximum friction for ordinary people while keeping the high-leverage parts of the machine insulated. I call it the surgical shutdown. Today we're going past the headline and into the wiring. Who is being held hostage, which functions are protected by separate funding, and why your time in an airport security line is being used as a political poker chip. Here is the key detail the mainstream coverage tends to gloss over. On Thursday, the Senate failed to move the DHS funding bill. The vote was 52 to 47. They needed 60. And then lawmakers left Washington for a roughly 10-day recess. That is not just a break. Functionally, it is a time lock. If the negotiators are not in the room, the disruption has a minimum runway. Now look at the scale. DHS is not a small agency. It is over 260,000 employees, and roughly 90% are still working during shutdown, many without pay. This is where spreadsheet logic fails. You can order a body to show up. You cannot order morale. You cannot order attendance when bills are due and pay is delayed. Why do I call this surgical? Because most of the federal government is funded through September. The FAA is funded. Air traffic control is paid. Flights can keep moving. But TSA is trapped inside the DHS funding line. TSA becomes the public-facing choke point. About 95% of TSA workers are designated essential. They have to show up, even when pay is interrupted. This is the perfect political weapon. It is visible, it irritates voters, and it is easy to blame on the other side. The departure board can look normal while the security checkpoint becomes the battlefield. It is a manufactured bottleneck, not to stop the economy, but to make you feel pain without shutting the entire system down. Let's get uncomfortably specific. TSA has about 61,000 employees. We know what happens next because we have seen the pattern before. Acting TSA Administrator Hung-Win McNeil told lawmakers that during the last disruption, officers were sleeping in their cars at airports, selling blood and plasma, and taking second jobs to afford groceries. That is not a sad anecdote. That is operational decay. McNeil also said TSA saw a 25% increase in attrition in October and November compared to the same period the year before. And now we are moving into spring travel season. You do not need the entire system to collapse. You only need localized absentee spikes at a few major checkpoints to go viral, and the narrative writes itself. Wall Street likes to treat shutdowns as noise. People glance at the S&P 500 and say, no crash, no problem. That is lazy analysis. The real output here is friction. It is a regressive tax on time. It hits the hourly worker who misses a shift because a security line ate 3 hours. It hits small businesses whose travel schedules get shredded. It hits families forced to arrive absurdly early just to reduce the probability of missing a flight. Friction is never evenly distributed. It hits the bottom and the middle first. And timing matters. This started on a holiday weekend and stretches into another high-volume travel window. A system can absorb a shock for 48 hours. When the shock becomes routine, the gears start grinding, then staff loss compounds it. Now for the sleight of hand. While TSA becomes the hostage, other parts of DHS are protected by separate funding. ICE and CBP, the enforcement arms, have an insulated funding stream reported at over $135 billion tied to Republicans' One Big Beautiful Bill, enacted on July 4th. That structure is why Republicans argue those operations continue largely unabated during the shutdown. Federal reporting also notes that during last fall's shutdown, that funding was used to keep paying roughly 70,000 federal law enforcement officers, including IC and CBP agents, while other workers went unpaid. So the design is simple. The politically sensitive enforcement engine stays warm, while the public-facing services become the pressure point. It is not just airports. At the Secret Service, about 94% of roughly 8,200 employees continue working in a shutdown, often without pay. The Coast Guard is also caught in the DHS funding trap. When uniformed services work without predictable pay, you do not just get inconvenience. You get readiness risk. You get retention risk. A search and rescue pilot should not be doing mission math while also doing rent math. Then there is FEMA. Disasters do not wait for Senate procedure. FEMA has roughly 22,000 staff and lost over 2,000 employees in a workforce transition program last year. The LAPS plan shows about 84% of FEMA staff are accepted or exempt, meaning most still work while a portion is furloughed. Funding nuance matters here. Reporting indicates FEMA has about $7 billion available in the Disaster Relief Fund during the shutdown, and experts estimate that could cover roughly 2 months under normal conditions. But normal is not a catastrophic hurricane. Normal is not a cyber-physical incident. Short shutdown, you limp. Long shutdown, you hollow out. Disaster during shutdown, you get a bill that cannot be spun away. Now the part market's chronically underpriced. Cyber. CISA, the agency coordinating critical infrastructure defense, planned to keep only 888 of 2,341 employees as accepted staff. That is roughly 38%. Those staff can work, but pay is still disrupted. The acting director warned this degrades timely guidance and delays cybersecurity services to partners defending networks. In timelines tied to CIRCIA, the cyber incident reporting rules for critical infrastructure can be delayed when rulemaking and implementation slow during a shutdown. Translation: the coordination layer thins exactly when adversaries know the U.S. is distracted. This is risk without a ticker. The damage does not always show up tomorrow. It shows up later as an intrusion that could have been prevented. Put the pieces together. Enforcement stays insulated. Public friction rises. Cyber coordination gets thinned. FEMA runs on reserves and assumptions. This is not random dysfunction. Dysfunction is a car that will not start. This is a repeatable pattern. Cost shifting. The political system externalizes the cost onto workers and citizens. It creates public pain to manufacture urgency. It uses urgency to generate leverage. Then it uses leverage to force concessions. You will not necessarily see a shutdown crash tonight. You will see micro failures, time lost in lines, delayed guidance, delayed processes, attrition that never comes back. This is wealth extraction through inefficiency. The bill exists. It is just not packaged as a single headline number, so most people ignore it until it hits them personally. Here is your practical checklist for the next 10 days. 1. Watch TSA absentee trends and localized line blowups. Viral bottlenecks force deals faster than speeches. 2. Watch weather pay protection patterns repeat for law enforcement, while other DHS components stay unpaid. 3. Watch signals that CISA is delaying more non-imminent work. That widens the cyber window. 4. Watch the disaster relief fund narrative. Enough for now is not a plan. It is a bet. Ask yourself one clean question. If enforcement stays oiled while the services you touch get squeezed, what exactly is being purchased with your inconvenience? This is After Hours Alpha. We do not just report the news. We price the friction. If you want the market the way it actually works, subscribe, like, and comment below. Which part of this surgical shutdown worries you most? Airports, cyber, or disaster response?